Hey everybody, quick update before we get back to the show. For the last few months, we've been working on improving the ways you can access LTB content. A few days ago, we launched the new web platform at letstalkbitcoin.com, which right now looks like a graphical, clean front page, but more importantly, will serve as our platform over the next number of years to have dozens of front pages created like letstalkbitcoin.com, showcasing the best content from thousands of independent blogs, also operating on the platform. This is the first of many announcements we'll be making over the next few months. We hope you enjoy our work. Now back to the show.
So perhaps relevant to our discussion that we were just having, it's recently come out that there's basically a government program in the U.S. that's handed down by the Department of Justice, ironic name, to basically cut off banking services within the legacy banking system to certain legal industries that they just don't like. For instance, pornography, porn actors, and firearms dealers and people who are in the firearms business. Even products that offer a lifetime guarantee or a lifetime warranty, or products that just have a lot of chargebacks in their business bank accounts can find their accounts down with no explanation. And in fact, there was a story that came out, I think, in Vice, where they kind of profiled someone who had this happen to them. And she was a former adult actor, not even currently doing porn. And both her bank account and her husband's bank account were shut down. He's not even a porn star. He just was married to her. And so their social security numbers were linked. You know, this is happening where banks are literally denying banking services to certain people. I believe there was another guy who was quoted in the same article who was a porn producer or something like that. And he tried to refinance his mortgage and was told that he was being declined for moral reasons. So this is actually happening. And, there have been a number of people in the banking. He was legally declined for moral
reasons. I like that.
Yeah, he was declined refinancing his mortgage for moral reasons. I mean, it just sounds like something that's made up, but it's not. It's really happening.
Just for a second, before we move on to discuss this topic a bit deeper, because I think it's very easy to focus on one or two issues, and I'm sure some people may morally object to pornography, and some other people may morally object to firearms. And then if you keep going down that slippery slope, you find some really interesting things. So here's the list of 30 high-risk merchant categories that the FDIC has that are currently being pursued by the DOJ, and supposedly that are also the focus of Operation Chokepoint, where by applying regulatory and subpoena power pressure, they are forcing the banks, forcing the cost of business of serving these accounts so high because of extrajudicial administrative action, cutting them down. So ammunition sales, cable box descramblers, coin dealers, credit card schemes, credit repair services, dating services, debt consolidation scams, drug paraphernalia, escort services, firearm sales, fireworks sales, get-rich products, government grants, home-based charities, lifetime guarantees, lifetime memberships, lottery sales, mailing list sales and personal info sales, money transfer networks, online gambling, payday loans, pharmaceutical sales, Ponzi schemes, pornography, pyramid-type sales, racist materials, surveillance equipment, telemarketing, tobacco, and travel clubs. Now, you'll notice are at least half a dozen billion-dollar industries. And so what this means is that they're targeting only the tiniest instances.
Legal ones.
Legal billion-dollar industries that are run by giant S&P 500 listed corporations, but they're not targeting them. Don't think they're shutting Pfizer's accounts down, right? Or shutting any of those. What they're targeting is really small-scale competitors that represent a nuisance to these large corporations. There's a very interesting aspect of due process and equal protection under the law here. This is legislation without legislative authority, which should worry everyone.
I don't know if we mentioned this yet, but the name of this is Operation Chokepoint. And what they're attempting to do is choke out certain industries by denying them banking services.
Centralized systems have choke points. Centralized banking is a choke point. And so this is what happens when you combine government authority, but not lawful authority, not authority derived through legislation. Because listen, you can morally object to all these things. If you morally object to all these things, go lobby Congress, pass a law, make them illegal. Tough luck, then it's legal to pursue these under law. So what they're doing is they're pursuing them extrajudicially. They're using power of regulation over a corporate system in order to pursue things that they have not been authorized by Congress to do. That means that they are violating the separation of powers principles, and at the same time, they're creating an unholy alliance of unaccountable government and unaccountable corporate power. I believe there's a word for that. Fascism? Yes. It may be soft fascism, but this is most definitely fascism. The idea that you will take lawful activities that you morally object to, but you don't have the ability to pass laws against because you don't have the consent of the governed, and then use strong-arm power through administrative and regulatory powers of the executive to force corporations or collude with corporations, that is fascism. And it's a nice little slippery slope here. Because, of course, if your account gets banned, what do? You don't have any due process rights. If it's a law, you can appeal. You can fight it through the courts. You can challenge it constitutionally. You can't challenge an account closure constitutionally or judicially when the bank has done it under these circumstances. You a lot harder. A specific law. And so what this does is it removes the rights to due process and equal protection under the law of individuals. And these are applied disproportionately on minorities, on poor people, on small businesses, and on people who don't have the power to either bribe the government not to target them or fight this with an army of lawyers in the courts. And this is really scary stuff, because this proves definitively why government cannot be trusted with power over money.
It's authority and control, right? I mean, that's the thing, is that if you make these things laws, then there's the ability to stop them. Whereas if you just say, okay, well, nobody's paying attention anyways, let's just do stuff and nobody's going to call us on it, then you can get away with that for kind of a long time. We're going down this path because the pie continues to get smaller, because the current system we have isn't designed to make the pie bigger. It's designed to, continue perpetuating itself until absolutely it cannot any longer. I don't know, taking these things outside of the legal system is such a messy process. I don't even know how you recover from that. How do you fix a problem like this without saying, okay, everything that's happened as far as government is concerned, with all of these actions and all of the crazy repercussions certainly that they've caused in the millions of instances they've been applied. How do you say, okay, well, just kidding, that was all wrong. Everybody actually, that's no longer, that's okay now. To a certain extent, doesn't it become ingrained in the culture just because you have so many people who have already been subjected to it and gone through it?
Well, this is a fundamental breakdown of the rule of law, which is something that you see in most countries. Now, this isn't surprising stuff. This is the classic set of tools of a banana republic, of a dictatorship, of an authoritarian regime. I mean, if you look around the world, and certainly where I grew up in Greece, arbitrary and capricious implementation of law and administrative power is nothing new. And what you do is, as you have this, I'm sure, in Russia, you don't worry about whether there is lawful authorization to seize a business or shut down its bank account, because that doesn't really matter. But as you erode the rule of law, what happens is you also erode respect for the law, and then you also create corruption, because then the way to resolve this is through bribery, right? You don't have due process, so instead you replace that with corruption.
And we're seeing banks settle. We're seeing lawsuits, from government agencies against banks for violating the vague statute. And banks are settling. So, what is that but a bribe, really?
Where is the law being applied? The law is being applied to shut down things that are perfectly lawful, for which the executive cannot receive authorization from Congress, while at the same time, the Department of Justice did absolutely nothing to prosecute the rigging of markets, robo-signing, mortgage fraud, and massive theft that happened in 2008, in the run-up to 2008, and of course in the 5 years since, continues unabated and rewarded. Eventually, we're going to see more prosecutions under things like this than for fraud against consumers. And what it reveals, once again, is that regulatory powers are not used to protect consumers. They're used to either implement morality without legislative approval or to create competitive barriers to entry. And a lot of these things that are on this list are things where you have large established corporations that want to be shielded from any type of competition. And so this is a perfect opportunity to shut it down through regulation rather than competing in the free market. All it does is proves once again why having control over your own money is essential, why governments can be trusted to control money.
You know, there's a related story to this from back in March, I believe, where, we saw the tense situation in Russia, where Visa and MasterCard cut off payments to some Russian banks that were actually previously, approved according to the U.S. And the reason for that was to, quote, put pressure on people they saw as members of Putin's inner circle. So, of course, this is used for political reasons. Of course, it's used to apply pressure in ways that, politicians want to apply pressure. And you're exactly right, Andreas. I mean, that's why we really have to apply some questioning to these types of policies and also question whether, whether being banked, so-called, is such a great thing. Does it create more problems than it solves?
Well, yes. I mean, that's the thing. The idea here, what you're being sold, is that the banking system and its regulations protect consumers from theft. But then when the theft is being conducted by the banking system, they don't protect consumers from theft. And when the government endorses that theft by not prosecuting it, or even rewards it in some cases, then the banking system is not protecting consumers at all. So then you have to think, who is the banking system protecting and who is it benefiting? What that shows is why decentralized systems that give no one the power over the flows of money are more fair, scale better, and deliver more power and more freedom to individuals to spend their money as they choose. And many individuals making individual choices is better than some unaccountable bureaucrat without any oversight being able to do whatever the hell they want and pressure banks because they don't like a specific industry or specific practice.
That's what happens every day is people make individual decisions based on their own economic well-being, or what they perceive it to be moving forward. And so that's really the interesting part about this to me is that where we're talking about the US and we're talking about people there in various industries essentially being unbanked forcibly, they didn't want to leave their bank. They're being kicked out. And so because of that, you have people who wouldn't probably have considered a change to anything other than a bank. But now suddenly they have this experience and it gets again, so it changes things at a fundamental level about how people react to this stimulus when it comes in the future, and how they make decisions about these things. And we can see the same thing happening with the Russia situation. It's been described as the de-dollarization. The dollar is the world's reserve currency. The token has been around for 200 and something years.
I love how you just called the US dollar a token.
When the current system kicks people out, those people have a choice. They can use nothing, or they can use something that they create or that they work with someone else to create or that someone else has created and isn't related to the thing that they were kicked out from. So you're not actually doing anything other than making your own pool of users substantially smaller. And again, that's what I see happening over and over again with this situation in Asia with Russia and with China, is that the U.S. seems to be acting in ways that are antagonistic to the point where it is becoming worthwhile for these countries simply to do their own thing. We are creating, in the parlance of what we may call it in the future, if a war winds up happening between great powers or reserve currency powers, we are setting up the axis of evil, and it's entirely being done because we are treating them like and basically rubbing their faces in the fact that we can do whatever we want because we control the reserve currency and they can't do anything about it. So again, it's this super interesting soup of we wouldn't be able to even be have the context to understand why this conversation is relevant if the existing system wasn't doing its damnedest to get everybody out of it as possible. And then those people have no attachment.
And that difference is that people have a choice. Now, right now, most people don't even know they have a choice yet, but some of us already do. And more people every day are discovering that they have a choice. If you become unbanked today, there is now a choice, and that choice is Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And if you come over to Bitcoin, we will welcome you with open arms, and we will give you full control over your own money and over your financial destiny and over your financial choices.
See, but you're saying we will, and that's so wrong.
We are.
It's not we will. It's there.
It's there. You
can.
Exactly. You're right. It's
you can.
It's not don't do evil. It's can't do evil. And so the system is designed in such a way that it empowers individuals immediately without permission, without need for access permission, without need for verification. It is available. Just make the choice and join it. And then you have the power by default. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So great. Come join us. We're having fun over here with Bitcoin. And just more people need to figure out they have a choice.
Yes, absolutely. They need to figure out they have a choice. And that's, I think, the thing that really has come to me over the last couple of months is that at the core, what we've done with this technology and what these types of technologies and really it's decentralization. It's not even about Bitcoin. It's just decentralization, but decentralized web-based technologies break monopolies. If you have a system where you have a centralized monopoly that has complete control over a market and you introduce a disruptive technology into it that does the same thing, you no longer have a monopoly. And if you make it international, then you really no longer have a monopoly, because even if it attracts negative attention in one country, it just shifts the tide, pushes the water, and it seeks its own level. So that's, people have not realized that regardless of what you're talking about, the ability to perpetuate a monetary monopoly just doesn't exist in a way that it did even 4 or 5 years ago. And that's fundamentally changed the world we live in.